Let's get our friends on here, and then we are going to get started with the 4 steps you can take to improve potty training. So I am Dr. Mary Barbera, and if you are new to me, I have been in the autism world for over 2 decades, first as a very confused, overwhelmed parent, and transformed to a board-certified behavior analyst. I've been a registered nurse since the 1980s as well. I'm also a best-selling author. I have a PhD and a behavior analyst. So if you are joining, let me know where you're joining from. I see Lily Daisy's here already. This is her 14th night in a row, and she's in Australia. I know that. So we are going to talk tonight all about potty training. So if you have potty training questions related to autism, or early signs of autism, you can put it in the chat, but I'm going to cover the basics of potty training. I have a free potty guide. If after you want to search Mary Autism Potty, you'll probably find a video blog, a podcast, a free guide. My first book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, has a chapter on potty training. Chapter 12 is on potty training of my new book. I'm going to go over the 4-step Turn Autism Around approach, which covers any area. And I'm going to specifically talk about the 4 steps and what you can do starting tomorrow, starting today, in terms of potty training. So, okay, I see we have, and if you're listening to the recording, introduce yourself too. Let me know where you're from. Ebony is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm about an hour away. Kelly's from Connecticut. Kathy's from Florida. And like I said, okay, we have Missouri in the house. I can't pronounce that. North Carolina, Carolyn, Las Vegas. Excellent. Okay. So I'm going every day. It's turning into my evening. I'm Eastern time. We just switched the clocks forward for those of you that are outside of the United States. We just switched the clock forward last night. And so I've been managing to come on here anywhere between 4 and 9 p.m. my time, but so if you want to watch the replays of these lives, you can go to marybarbera.com/Facebook/YouTube. I'm doing it simultaneously through a third-party system. So, okay, potty training. Let's talk about it. So I've been a registered nurse since the mid-1980s, and I always work with neurologically impaired patients that had strokes and head injuries, spinal cord injuries. Part of our nursing curriculum was to help patients, whatever they were recovering from, to become independent with self-care. We worked with multidisciplinary teams. I always worked in the neurology rehab part of nursing, so there were multidisciplinary team goals. There was lots of things that led to me developing expertise even with adults that needed help with incontinence and constipation and all kinds of things. So fast forward, I had my boys. And then Lucas was diagnosed with autism. Lucas is 24 now. Spencer's 23. So Lucas started ABA therapy when he was 3, a little over 3. And I asked the consultant right away, can we start potty training? And she said, no, not until we have some really good skills going. At this point, we just need to get the basics down. So then when he was 4, Lucas had really bad tonsils and sleep apnea, and so he needed his tonsils out. So we waited until he was after that. So he was 4.5. He got his tonsils out, and then I began potty training, actually both my boys at the same time. So whether your child is just showing signs of autism and or they have autism and they're older. I mean, I've worked with kids that are 16, not toilet trained. I mean, it is a huge, huge deal. no matter what age. And just because you might have an older kid that potty trained easily, kids with autism, or even kids with early signs of autism, ADHD, medical, there are medical reasons why kids, some kids have tube feedings and gastrointestinal problems. There's all kinds of complications that could be impeding potty training. So if you have a child under 3, or under 2, and you really want to do anything, the biggest thing you can do is start pairing sitting on a small potty. Don't wait like I did until age 3 to pull out the potty, or age 4 to pull out the potty and start potty training, because by that point, a lot of kids that were on the spectrum, on the moderate severe end of the spectrum, might, or even mild autism, might resist sitting on the potty. So get out the potty early. There are even programs and books on potty training babies. I haven't really become an expert on that, but I do believe that we should pair sitting on the potty, just like before bath, first thing in the morning when you're changing their diaper. Make it a part of the routine, just like brushing teeth or washing hands is. That can only help. So there are 4 steps to the Turn Autism Around approach. So step number 1 is assessment. So we have to assess what the age and ability level is. So if you tell me you have a 3 or 4-year-old who's almost age appropriate for language, for imitation, for social skills, they're going to daycare, they're being held back in daycare because of potty, but they're sitting at the table for snack and they're not aggressive. And, it sounds like that child would be ready for serious work on potty training. But if you tell me you have a 3 or 4-year-old who is not sitting at the table, not accepting reinforcement, aggressive, self-injurious, not talking, then it sounds like there's a lot of other skills that I would focus on and get good at before heavy focus on potty training. You still might want to pair up the potty and that sort of thing. But what I find is that parents come to me when I used to do one-to-one work, and now when I'm doing my online courses, and they might have an older child who has had many failed attempts at potty, will no longer sit on the potty. It's a struggle. There's, accidents, there's struggle. And in that situation, you really have to assess the situation like, were they ever successful on the potty? Will they sit? And you might say, well, I have a boy, can they stand? No, actually, it's a big part of my approach is that boys should sit on the toilet or the potty until they are fully bowel trained, because I've seen this time and time again, 10, 12-year-old boy who is pee trained but poop not so much, and will be asking for diapers and chronically constipated. And it's just, so if you are starting, boys need to sit until they are fully bowel trained, if you're going to follow my approach. Okay, so assessment is number 1, and I have a 1-page assessment as part of my book. I did a live on assessment. There's a whole chapter on assessment in my book, which is now available for pre-order, and I would definitely do that at turnautismaround.com. I would pre-order it right now. It looks like they've had to add on to the number of books being printed because the pre-orders are going really well, which means that I don't want you to have to wait. It's available in hardcover, Kindle, and Audible, and I read the book. So get it now, turnautismaround.com. I also have a very active book launch team. We're giving away prizes in my book launch team, like this nice water bottle that says Turn Autism Around. But the book launch team is going to be closing just in a few days. This week it will be closed. So if you want to pre-order the book and join the launch team, go to turnautismaround.com for all the details, and we'll get you in there. Okay, so assessment is number 1, and that is the 1-page assessment, the self-care checklist, age and general ability level. We need to really look and see if this is the right time. Now, people say, well, what about prerequisites like staying dry for 2 hours or requesting or showing interest? You don't really need to show interest, but I'd say some prerequisites are that they respond to reinforcement. They take it from you. They like it. You know what they like. They will sit at a table for 5 minutes while you deliver reinforcement or for a preferred activity. And they'll sit happily, because if they're not sitting with you at the table to do learning activities and fun activities, then they're probably not going to sit on the potty for 5 minutes. Hand washing and pants up and down, the more they tolerate that, they're independent with that, that would be really good too. So if you don't have those skills in place, that would be something I'd work on. So that's step number 1 is assessment. And then step number 2 is planning. So really, once you do the assessment, okay, what other skills might take priority? So planning, I have a 1-page planning form. There's a whole chapter in my book on planning. I did a live session on planning. You can look back. And you may need to pair or repair a small potty if the child is small, or the regular toilet. You may need to pair that up with watching a video, reading special books, reinforcement of some kind. Even for kids that don't tolerate it at all sitting. I know when my kids were little, I would just playfully before bath, okay, let's sit on the potty, let's sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. So you're not holding on to them struggling, you're just like making it fun. You're just supporting them, and you're singing a song, counting to 10 or counting to 100, and then off, and then reinforcement. Okay, so assessment, planning, seeing, are we going to do this? Because focusing on it and having not success, then it's kind of like anything. Then you got to restart, and then the child has past history of not going well. So I would even suggest that you make a plan to hold on until you read my book. Seriously, it is that important. Okay, and then the third step of the Turn Autism Around approach, assessment's 1, planning's 2. Third is teaching. So there are a few steps to the actual teaching of toileting. If it doesn't work out with just pairing and just, the child shows interest and does it like that, usually requires extra liquids, scheduled sits, not waiting for the child to say they have to go. That comes later. Usually it's an hour, and then set a timer, and every hour take your child to the potty, reinforce for sitting, reinforce for going if they go, and then reinforcement and some data collection so that you remember if there was success or not. And we talk about all that in the chapter. And then the 4th step is to evaluate using that data collection system. So it should take days or weeks or maybe a month or 2, but it definitely should not take years. And it should go, it should be getting better. I do in my book talk about constipation, and that is a real concern with a lot of kids, and that can cause both wetting accidents. It can cause problems with potty training. So that is the story. There is a really good book called It's No Accident, written by an MD, a pediatric urologist who's a pee doctor. But he had found that in his clinic, he found that 90% of kids that had toileting problems were actually chronically constipated. So you may want to take a look at that book as well. All right, now I'll just answer a few potty training questions if there are any. Let's see. Okay, so a BCBA, Kelly, she said, nonverbal 7-year-old student going regularly at school on a schedule and staying dry, will manned with a picture exchange to go to the bathroom. That's excellent. What's your thought on the next step to fade schedule to independence? Well, yeah, so that's in my book. It's also in my free potty guide if you want to search, actually marybarbera.com/potty. But basically, say they're on an hour schedule, and we're still giving some extra consistent liquids throughout the day, then the schedule would be moved to every hour and a half, and then every 2 hours we would still be constantly pushing liquids. And then even now on a schedule of an hour, say, every time, okay, so the student will man for pecs to go to the bathroom, okay, but he's still on a schedule. So you're like, time to go to the bathroom, and then he's handing you the pecs. I would take a couple steps and I would say, where do you have to go? Either sign for potty or exchange the picture again. Where do you have to go? Exchange a picture or sign, so that the student is actually getting a couple practice trials in to man for the potty. And then fade out your schedule. And that's pretty much what we do. And then we fade out the schedule. But the other consideration, Kelly, is make sure that home is being trained, because you don't want a child completely fine at school and then who knows what's happening at home in terms of potty training. So just definitely coordinate with the mom or dad in terms of potty training at home. But yeah, it sounds like you're doing a great job with a nonverbal 7-year-old who's staying dry at school. That's half the battle. But I do, within my verbal behavior bundle of courses, which you can join. We have lots of BCBAs there, but I have a bonus video called Almost Potty Trained, and that getting off the schedule and fading the schedule systematically so that the child is successful is really key. All right. My daughter, she's 4. She will go upstairs and let me know when she used the bathroom, or sometimes she would tap her front, or sometimes she won't say nothing. I have to catch her. Yeah, it sounds like she's doing well for 4. I would teach her, instead of tapping on her front, is to sign for bathroom. If she can speak, I would have her say bathroom or potty. And I would put her on a schedule, set a timer, so that she is going on a regular basis, so that you're not just looking for the potty dancy, cues. Thank you for this advice. We are just at the point with potty training. Excellent. Well, make sure you pre-order my book. Lots in there. When is the best time for a nonverbal child? I have started potty training children who are completely not talking as early as I've started 2.5, 3. Fox and Azrin, who've done the most studies on children with autism and potty training, suggest that even any 5-year-old, even with a very low IQ, can be potty trained. And I do believe that. There might be medical problems, though, with some kids. Like, I've had kids with autism and cerebral palsy and those sorts of things. So know that, medical problems can definitely get in the way. But for the most part, but there's a whole lot more skills you need to be working on for a nonverbal, non-speaking child, and that is the ability to request somehow, either vocally, with sign, with pictures, with a device, getting them to imitate, getting them to match, getting them receptively identifying. There's a whole lot you can do. It's all seriously outlined in my book. There's also chapters on sleep and eating, potty training, going to the doctor's, dentist, haircuts without a fuss. So many skills that these kids need. So I'd say, but definitely by 4 or 5, you can start potty training, even if the child is non-vocal. But you do want to have some of those prerequisite skills in place: the ability to sit happily, take reinforcement, follow simple directions, pull up and down their pants, and those sorts of things that I teach you in the book. All right, I'm just looking for any last My daughter gives the cue that she wants to go by crouching, but doesn't like to sit on the potty. Yeah, so you might want to explore like a small potty or a ring, figure out why she doesn't want to sit, because sitting is really required. So sitting with a DVD player that's kept in the bathroom, or an iPad, or a special book, or something, to even sitting and singing one song. And then maybe she crouches on the toilet and you hold her. It's not like that's totally off the chart in terms of abnormal, but I'd want her to have her crouch or sit for the count of 10. Okay, now I'll help you crouch. Or sit for the count for a song. Okay, now I'll help you crouch over the toilet to pee. Because we definitely need to have her sit happily and eventually get on and off herself. And I wouldn't just look for clues. I would put her on a schedule, push fluids, take data, because it's just going to be a very long way if you just are cueing into her signals. Maria Acosta is from Ontario, Canada. Excellent. Okay, so a 2-year-old, nonverbal, not aggressive, not sitting at the table, doesn't like sitting at the table or the potty, struggles to take instructions. Yeah, so I wouldn't even touch potty for a 2-year-old like this. I would get the book, preferably join my online course and community, and go from there. Put potty training on the back burner for these kind of kids, especially at age 2. It's even typically developing kids don't. Okay, so Sabrina said 8-year-old would not have an accident if he was kept occupied, but all the accidents happen when he's having a break or some time on his own. So I would really go through the procedures in my book, in my potty guide, in my it's we need to get the child on a schedule, but then we need to get the child requesting. We need to get the child independent with the bathroom routine. So many things, but for an 8-year-old, it is really one of the top priorities, because if you have an 8-year-old that's not completely potty trained, you will have trouble getting inclusion in school, taking to a restaurant, getting a babysitter, taking them on a plane. It's just such an important skill. So while I'm saying for a 2-year-old, definitely put it on the back burner, an 8-year-old, I would do whatever it took to learn how to potty train. Yeah, 4-year-old has gone to the bathroom on the potty, but does have constipation and would prefer to do bowel movements in his diaper. So, I would get the book, It's No Accident, pre-order Turn Autism Around at turnautismaround.com. Join our launch team. It's a very common problem, and first you have to tackle the constipation. All right, well, I am going to get going. I only had a little bit of time tonight, but just to summarize, there are 4 steps to the Turn Autism Around approach, which we can tackle any issue, including potty training. Those are assessment, planning, intervening or teaching, and data collection, so that we can really tell what we're doing is working, and we can make data-based decisions to change our procedures accordingly.